Very soon we will see a new villain, and it will be not someone new, but already well known to us, Jax. Today we will talk about his character, crimes, behavior in the pilot and the second episode, as well as discuss his further actions after the events of the second episode, and of course, I will prove to you why Jax will be the new antagonist in the digital Circus universe. The character of Jax. In the pilot episode, we saw that Jax was funny, crazy, a little cowardly, but at the same time, he really liked to make evil jokes on the others, to bully and disturb the peace of life. But it was the second episode that showed us the whole essence of Jax. I would even say his animal gut. We learned that there was almost nothing left of Jax's past, and now he was given a free hand to do what he did and took advantage of it, which we saw in many scenes. Jax at the beginning of their journey was very happy about that, and even tried to convince Zubul to go on a new adventure with them. But Jax was especially happy when he found out that they had to find a gang of robbers and they were going to do it in a truck. But as soon as he didn't like something, he immediately put Gangle behind the wheel. And with the course of the whole chase, Jax's madness became more and more. And finally, it came to the point that he started to threaten and blackmail Gangle, and we will talk about the situation with Pomni. But as soon as they failed, the joy on Jax's face was replaced by sadness. And I'm sure that it was not the fact that they were on the verge of death, but the fact that such an exciting adventure was over. Then there was a meeting with Fudge Monster, which cheered Jax up, but he was especially delighted to learn that Fudge had eaten a huge number of NPCs for fun, and he liked to remember their screams and the terror in their eyes. And already at this point we realize that Jax is not just a bully who likes to make fun of others, real sadist who is happy to feel the pain and horror of other characters. But as soon as something went wrong and the situation in the kingdom calmed down again, it plunged Jax into depression, from which they tried to get him out, but it was unsuccessful. This state of Jax continued until he came up with a way to amuse himself, and in the end, he created chaos in the kingdom, which caused genuine satisfaction, and in the end, we realized that Jax had a successful day, which is shown in this scene. But still, we also saw a note of uncertainty and some doubt in Jax, and the moments where Jax considers himself to be in charge are also revealing. This is clearly visible in the chase and in the moment with the binoculars, which Jax brazenly took away. These situations once again confirm the selfishness and disregard for other people's wishes. Summing up about the character of Jax, we can say that this guy is not really an ordinary joker or hooligan, but a real maniac who hides under the mask of a funny rabbit. But in his heart, all his dreams are only suffering and pain of others. And for the sake of it, he is ready to do anything. And if before it was localized, now his crimes have become a mass character. And I was correct in calling all of his actions crimes. And the first thing Jax did when he saw that they were given the truck was to run and take the driver's seat, thus confirming his status as an egoist who doesn't care about the desires of others. And then, after the disappointment, he forcibly put Gangle in the truck, even though it was obvious that she didn't want it. Then the most significant act was the mocking of Pomni when Jax, because of his crazy ideas, decided that throwing Pomni on a neighboring truck would be a good idea. In the end, it almost got Pomni killed, for which she was rude to the bully. Well, without rude blackmail also did not do without, and the victim was already familiar to us in this role, Gangle. And the object of blackmail was some figurine, and apparently still in the digital Circus, Jax helped Gangle to hide something, and in the end, she fell into eternal captivity to him. But that's just the beginning, and his most brutal crimes begin a little later. The meeting with Fudge Monster became the key event in revealing Jax's identity, and we have already said a little about it. But everyone remembers the fragment where Jax and Fudge Monster made a deal, in which Fudge was to help catch alligators and take them out of the abyss, and in exchange for this, Jax would give the key to the city that Fudge needed for revenge for past offenses. And at the time of the deal, Jax was very excited and happy, and I think it was not because they would finally be able to get out of the abyss and find the robbers, but because of what would happen next. As we know, the help in catching the alligators was not needed, so Jax could have defaulted on his commitments. But for our rabbit, it would not be interesting, and here we are approaching the main crime of Jax, because of which he can be punished. And the degree of punishment depends on Kane's wishes. Jax has committed mass murder at Candy Canyon Kingdom, and you can argue that he did nothing with his own hands, but look at the excitement and happiness he felt when he realized that he left the gates to the city open for a reason, and realized that this terrible voice is his old friend Fudge, who will destroy the entire kingdom in the next hour. And here there is a dilemma, because no one knows the fate of the kingdom after the end of the test, and it is likely that it just disappeared and no one was hurt. But none of us, including Jax, know this for sure, which means that the rabbit already had a plan to wreak havoc in the kingdom and was well aware of the consequences for all its inhabitants after his so-called jokes. I'm sure that if Jax knew that the location would disappear after the adventure was over, he would have just closed the door, but he was sure that there would be ruins left behind. And this says about Jax only that he is a sadist and a killer who for the sake of his pleasure is ready to sacrifice absolutely anyone, and he does not care who it will be, an ordinary NPC or a living person. And his attitude towards everyone is expressed in his behavior. We have partially told about his behavior in the chapter about the character, but the important difference is that here we will compare his attitude to the others and remember a little bit of the pilot episode. From the previous chapter, we learned that Jax is ready to sacrifice thousands of characters just for a moment's pleasure, and he doesn't feel a single drop of regret for his actions. And in contrast to him, we can say about Pomni, who also has a huge influence on the second episode. When Pomni and Gummy Goo, who is also not a living character but an ordinary game NPC, get into the back room, Pomni, instead of mocking the fact that the alligator found out that everything he remembered and knew simply doesn't exist, on the contrary, tries to somehow support him, calm him down, befriend him, and it seemed to me that she even took a friendly liking to him. Or the same Regatha, when she found out about the monstrous events in the kingdom because of Fudge, she could not find words to describe it while Jax was happy with such news. But the most important thing was hidden at the end of the second episode, but we'll discuss it after a little nostalgia for the pilot episode. Right away we remember how Jax mocked Pomni at the time when she first got into the circus, and while everyone else was somehow trying to convince her that it wasn't that bad, Jax was directly telling her that she was close to going crazy, or how he dumped the girls when he was scared of Kaufmo and then talked to Kinger and Gangle in a mocking manner. I'm not even talking about his attitude towards Gangle, because you already know that she is his main target, not only in the pilot, but also in the second episode. And now, the most important scene that showed the essence of Jax's attitude to all the other characters. Remember the scene of Kaufmo's funeral in the beginning? Everyone was talking to each other and trying to explain to Pomni what was going on. Jax was standing there, and I thought he was a little sad about the funeral, but I think it's a little bit different. Look how he was leaving at the end, and you can see on his face that he is not happy that everyone is getting closer and closer to each other, but there is no room for Jax among them. But objectively, he is to blame for all of this, and instead of coming to his friends, he just walks away and nobody cares about him. And we see Jax getting more and more alienated from the others, and everyone mentally feels it, especially Pomni, who experienced a hallucination and saw the support from everyone in the circus, from Ragatha, Gangle, Kinger, and even the very harsh Zubul. But Jax is again not present here, and here we realize that Jax is a recluse and a maniac who could quite possibly become a major threat to everyone else. Well before now, it's time to recognize that Jax could very realistically become the main antagonist in the digital circus. He's a terrible friend, an unreliable comrade, a bully, a joker in the worst sense of the word, and a real sadist who apparently doesn't need anyone's support, and because of that he allows himself much more than everyone else. Or on the contrary, Jax is too much in need of attention and tries to attract the attention of others with all his actions. But in any case, both options lead to the inevitable, the complete negation of the rabbit by all the other characters, and as a result, a possible abstraction. And that means he will have nothing to lose, and the scale of his jokes and actions with each episode will be bigger and bigger, and the destruction of Candy Kingdom may seem like a child's prank. But before that, we will see a lot more about this amazing character. The last thing we saw of Jax was his stealthy exit from Kaufmo's funeral. But what happens next? If you think about it, Pomni is the kind of character that gathers and binds others around him. And of course, Jax won't like that. He just wants chaos around everyone, even though he doesn't say it directly, and doesn't show it. I think that further he will start to humiliate and abuse the others more openly, and especially Gangle, or on the contrary, he will use her constantly blackmailing her with that figure. In general, as you understand, there are a lot of options, and I decided that it would be better to make a separate detailed video on this topic. Well, that's the end of our video. Write in the comments your opinion about Jax, and whether I was able to prove to you why he can become the main threat to the inhabitants of the circus. Bye-bye, everybody.